drum for the rolls. Hope you've been good. Hope you've been safe. I hope you've been okay. I appreciate the love I've been getting, the views, I appreciate. So we are now going to go through the last clip. I think from this debate, Peter Atkins. Let's see what he has in store. Still, as well, shout out to Oxford Union for hosting the whole debate, uploading and putting it out there for criticism, engagement. It's impressive. It's impressive. So as well, don't forget hit the like button, subscribe, comment, share, notification, icon, bell, smash them all. Let's see what's good.
Well, Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, that was a really hard act to follow. It is my duty, I think, this evening to try to respond to some of the challenges that have been put forward by the proposers, such as us not being particularly philosophical about the approach to Islam, us taking particular instances and ignoring the whole. So my job this evening, I think, is to be reflective. And it is also, I think, my job this evening to be conciliatory. I hate being conciliatory, but I'm going to try to be conciliatory this evening. But nevertheless, I will stand by opposition totally to the motion this evening. I'll begin by admitting that there is indeed a great deal of good in Islam, as we've heard from that side in particular.
At least for him, he's honest in the debate. I don't think in debates, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, tell me in the comment section. I don't believe in debates you're supposed to just go blindly, guns blazing. You can easily make a fool out of yourself when you just go in blindly trying to, push aggressively for people to accept your standpoint. This is an academic forum. This is an academic, environment. Come with facts. Don't speak from your own opinions. Mention on the sources, references as well.
Like all religions, Islam is a supermarket of ideas, of instructions and exhortations that good men can select according to their appetites. The trouble is that bad men can select according to their own appetites too. The trouble with Islam is that, as we've heard at considerable length on this side of the house, is that for some reason, although it professes peace, and has generated art and literature of exquisite beauty, so giving peace to the sensitive soul, which was one of the barbs that were thrown across to our side of the house, it does in practice seem to inspire violence rather more openly than the other Abrahamic religions. And indeed,
So for those who don't know what the Abrahamic religions are, they're just three. Is it Judaism? Yeah, Judaism from the tribe of Judah. Then we have the Christianity stemming from Christ. Then we have Islam stemming from the lineage of Ishmael. So the reason they're called Abrahamic religions is because they all trace back all the way to Abraham. That's arguably that's where they break off. And it's interesting to me because the Jews and those practitioners of Judaism, they're stuck at the end point is Moses, Abraham. Those who come after, they're not really that concerned with them. For the Christians, they're concerned with those who come after Moses, Abraham, the likes of David, Solomon. They're concerned with them. all the way up to Christ. Then what's interesting now is Islam takes up all of them. Like it's focal for you to believe in, like for the Muslims, it's focal for them to believe in the Injil, the Zabur, the Torah as well, and also like the Quran as the final revelation. But arguably, we have no verifiable text of the Injil, no verifiable like text of the Torah and the Zabur. The closest that we come to, just like those mentioned in the Bible, yeah, arguably.
Thinking about what Mehdi has just said, all the terrorists who were mentioned were Islamic terrorists. That, I think, is something that you should take on board.
Free theology training is out there. You just found it.
Really?
Tell trains leaders for Christ.
My colleagues have catalogued a number of its iniquities, and I shall not add to them, for the unspeakable speaks for itself. I would add, however, that when in a few minutes you come to consider how you will vote this evening, then you should not weigh good and evil equally in the balance. It is the case that one evil outweighs one good many times over. For loss of life, inhibition of aspiration, barbaric punishment and imposition, and intellectual stifling cannot be assuaged by acts of hospitality, however generous. All the seas incarnadine cannot wash blood from a religion's hands by an act of piety. The evils will have destroyed a human life, as they did yesterday, and that life cannot be restored by charity. For every evil act inspired by Islam,
not even the
even though
audience,
the
like you're smoking
perpetrator...
even the audience, my D, you're smoking the audience as well. Damn. At least be human, be a bit human with the audience, and just let them eat into your time. Just a little bit though. Damn, that's cool though.
is regarded by the rest of Islam as a deviant. 10, 100, or 1,000 inspired good deeds are not enough compensation. Now, as we've agreed, Islam seems peculiarly suited to the inspiration of violence. It's responding to your challenge earlier this evening at the beginning of the debate. It's appropriate to explore why. For then, no, I can't.
He's giving the template on how to lose a debate. Like, you can be factual, but I believe as well, like debates are also crowd play. Like you have to learn how to pull the crowd, how to win them over. Like in the previous clip, I'd argue like Mehdi Hassan did win the debate because like he had the crowd moving, he had the people engaged, Even those in the crowd who were like popping up, like, yo, I have a question. He's like, yeah, quick, fast. Then takes the question, then does a response.
For then, we might be able to see that far from being a religion of peace, it is intrinsically and ineluctably one where the opposite of peace, whether that be violence or other forms of peace, is woven into its very fabric, what was alluded to as the golden threads of the fabric earlier today. I might interpolate here, as has been suggested by this side of the House, that by identifying the threads of evil in its fabric, a new prophet, guided by the whisperings of a latter-day Gabriel, might be able to generate a new Islam. Let's call it Islam 2.0, in which the glories that the proposers have so eloquently identified this evening are dominant and unsullied. Islam 2.0 would then rightfully be regarded as a religion of peace. But tonight we have before us only Islam 1.0, and it is that version that you must base your judgment on. The West, I will, in order to be conciliatory, the West is perhaps a tiny degree responsible. I will refer to the West and accept some responsibility for the excesses of Islam, but not for its intrinsic character. The West, with its liberal and encouraging attitude towards fellow man and man's intellectual achievement, has perhaps been too hasty in its aim to share its enlightenment. That impatient haste has been perceived as cultural imperialism and has fanned the embers of discontent into sometimes flaming hatred. The West's joy at stumbling into the Enlightenment and its impatient zeal to liberate minds and share personal liberty as soon as possible has perhaps encouraged the seeds of evil in Islam to flourish. But Islam itself must take responsibility for those seeds. It would be a brave man, of course, who said anything against the purity and brilliance of the Prophet, of course, and I must vehemently dissociate myself from the views of the infidel scholars that I am about to share. There are three issues that those disgraceful and
You can tell something is wrong when, even as a speaker, you can tell something is wrong when even the public, the people you're speaking to, are against what you're saying. You know, like you can just tell you're losing them early on. He is proficient in his speech, but he's not playing to the tune of, like he's brushing off. I don't know, feeling some type of way about it.
Disrespectful Enlightenment liberated scholars so scurrilously identify. One is that Muhammad, if it is in fact true that he ever existed, was a robber baron, perhaps a psychopath, possibly a schizophrenic, and certainly a warrior who made his pronouncements in time of war. Although, of course, none of that can possibly be true. Were it to be true, it would account for the bloodthirsty surahs that pervade the Quran and are found in the Hadiths, and the sense that copious bloodshed is the characteristic of a prophet. We only have to look to the modern mafia, the same scurrilous scholars say, to see how control is exercised by barbarity. My second issue is to remind you that if you take the view that the litmus test of the propagation of peace is the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, then Islam, in the view of many of those same scurrilous scholars, is a desert. Article 1 says that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. Islam, think of the misogyny of Islam. Take Article 5.
Hold up.
No one should be punishable.
Wait a minute. Hold up. Arguing about freedom as the first point. Like everybody's born free, everybody's born, independent. It's ironic that you can tell he's from the West. As a person of color, like I'd argue on the whole idea of, like in America, the 400 years of slavery, of the blacks. Talk about the whole colonial exploitation of Africa by the West. So talking about like a religion pushes for slavery. I find it interesting because the verses in the Old Testament that mention on like the masters can kill, can beat, not kill per se, can beat their slaves to an inch of death. As long as they survive for a day or two, they shall not be held accountable. I find it interesting. If you look at some of the responses, are they responses per se? No, they're not responses, but more of a retribution for mistakes or falling short of crimes. Even mentioned in the Quran, it's more of the first one is usually free a slave. So how can you argue that Islam as a religion pushes for slavery, yet the book mentions like in certain situations like the first retribution is retribution is free slave. Like it's okay. I think it's this mentality of this mindset of like all Arabs are Muslims, which is actually not true because we do have Christian Arabs, you know.
By torture or cruel punishment. Contrast that with Islam's indulgence in amputation, stoning, and flogging.
Hold up. As well, like the whole idea of amputation, Bible mentions on if your hand makes you to sin, chop off the hand. If your eyes make you to sin, do what with the eyes. So it's the same. It's almost word for word. Like it's the whole idea of like as well as I think it was Daniel Johnson who mentioned on husbands and wives, about how the wives are oppressed and they have to obey their husbands. I find it rather interesting that he mentions on like stoning, killing, whatnot. Same thing does the people do. I mentioned the same thing. There are verses about like bring out certain individuals and stone them to death. Pointing like case in point, the story of like Christ and the adulterous woman. What was the response to Christ after like the woman was brought who was a harlot? Christ responded and said, according to the Bible, that is, he who is without sin cast the first stone. Pause for a minute. He who is without sin cast the first stone. So the punishment for her case in point was stoning to death. So it's, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking too deeply into it.
Article 18. Everyone has the right of freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, and may choose their religion. Contrast that with the punishment for apostasy in Islam, which is death.
Point of information.
No. My third and final, and I think most important point, is that if you take the view that peace stems from a reflective ethics that acknowledges changing times, then Islam, based as it is on the frozen, unquestionable statements of the Quran, is wholly alien to intelligent, rational, reflective civilization.
Point of information.
Nope.
These are rather risky approach to the debate because you can say the most foul points and you won't allow for any point of correction, and given that he's the last speaker in the list, nobody's going to refute or a rebuttal with him, so you can just say as much as you want whatever he wants. But
scholars point out that that the rules of Islamic law are valid by virtue of their mere existence, not because of their rationality or their sensitivity to progress. Islam, they say, is a religion without ethics, for ethics necessarily involves the questioning of foundations, which Islam forbids. Ethics is intrinsic to good government, and good government is intrinsic to peace.
Point of information.
Strike away ethics, and it follows that you strike away the pursuit.
Ethics as well as no peace.
I'm not taking the point. Strike away ethics, and it follows that you strike away the pursuit and propagation of peace. This evening you've seen both sides of a vision of Islam. This side of the House has gladly conceded that good men will find good things in it, as good men will find anywhere. But we, through examples of the behavior that Islam inspires and often condones, and I, by seeking to show that Islam has an intrinsic fault, long for Islam 2.0. Islam 2.0, Islam's enlightenment, will have an emphasis on humanity, subtlety, harmony, and reason, and be virtuous.
On that point,
This evening, though, you are judging Islam 1.0, not Islam 2.0. By opposing the motion, you will be encouraging the emergence of what most of humanity really longs for, but for which does not yet exist. Please, for the sake of humanity, oppose.
That's the end of this clip, as well as his take on the entire debate. He shifted the whole energy from the room. It is what it is, though. He does make some few claims. Pop into the comment section, give you a response, comment on some of the things you actually do agree with him and you oppose. Watch the other clips. They'll be linked in the description as well. I hope you enjoy the clip. See you in the next one. If you have any clips you would love me to go through, give my opinions on, give my take on, drop them in the comment section. I'll be going through, seeing what's good. Then we continue building up the channel, building up the community. So don't forget, hit the subscribe button, hit the like, hit the share, engage with us, hit the bell icon as well. See you in the next. Stay safe.